Tasmania's got an amazing array of rivers, streams and creeks all throughout the state, from the southern valleys to the northern Midlands and right up to the coastal areas. There's an incredible range of rivers that you can fish. They're all filled with trout, and there's some really good fishing available all throughout the season. One of the best techniques to target them with is a nymph under dry fly. So this gives you a good two-way bet for fish that are either feeding on the surface of the water or underneath. It really allows you to imitate all of the food sources that are available in that river that the fish are likely to be looking at. So it's a great way to fish all of the rivers, and that's what we're going to do today. So we've just made our way down to the river here to start the day. So we've just come in at one of our little access points that we use, marked with the Inland Fisheries Service access point. And we've got down to the river, and now we're just going to get set up for the day. So we're just going to run through what we're going to use today. So what I've gone for today is a 9-foot 5-weight rod there. You can go with a shorter 4-weight rod as well in some of the rivers. So just depending on a few different things, you might sort of chop and change between a 4 and a 5-weight. So if you were fishing a small river and there was going to be quite a lot of trees overhanging and things like that, you might go with a 4-weight just to give you that little bit shorter rod to get around some of the snags and the trees and stuff. So got our large arbor reel, which isn't too important in the little rivers here, but just a nice reel there that's going to do the job if you do happen to hook a good fish and it goes downstream. You just want to have a good drag system there. Nothing too fancy with the fly line, just a weight forward floating line is more than enough for this sort of thing. So just a good floating line. On the end of the fly line there, I've just attached a 9-foot 5x leader. What I'm going to do now is tie on about 4 feet or so of either 6 to 7x tippet, and that's going to make a dropper that I'm going to attach the dry fly to, and then on the end of that tippet I'm going to attach the nymph as well. So I'm going to go with some 6x tippet today. As we said, there's a few bigger fish that get around in this river system, so I think the 7x might be a little bit too light for today. We really want to be presenting that fly as naturally as we possibly can to the fish, so that lighter tippet is really going to allow us to get a nice drag-free drift, and the fish is also less likely to see that really fine tippet. Just again, we've got our 9-foot 5x leader all the way down to our little dropper knot there, and then about 4 feet of 6x tippet on the end of that. And now we'll have a look at some flies that we might use for today. Start with looking at some of the dry flies that we're potentially going to use today. So I've got a box put together here that could be a good selection for the day. So what we really want to start off with, given that we're going to be fishing a dry fly with a weighted nymph underneath, is we probably want a nice buoyant dry fly. So things that we've got here that imitate terrestrial insects are really good. So we get a lot of grasshoppers around here up in the Midlands, things like blowflies, stone flies, things like that. So you just want a nice buoyant dry fly. We still want to give ourselves a chance for that fish to come up and eat that dry fly. We don't just want to put something on that there's no chance of that fish eating. The real benefit of this technique is that it does give us that two-way bet. So we're giving ourselves a chance for the fish to either eat the dry fly or the nymph underneath. So there we go, we've just attached our little dry fly there. That's the little blowfly pattern to our little dropper that's on the end of our 9-foot 5x leader. So that's that one there. And then we'll slide down. We'll have a look at a few nymphs here as well. So what I've got here is pretty standard sort of nymph box that I use on all the rivers in Tasmania. So what I like to do is try and separate these into the bead sizes that we use. So anything from a 2.5mm to a 4mm bead is ideal here in Tasmania. We've got things here like a lot of pheasant tail nymphs is really common things for us to use, and also the little tag nymphs, so the pink and orange tag nymphs work particularly well too. that tends to be the two main varieties of nymphs that we use. The fish aren't going to be too fussy on what it is, as long as it's getting down to the right depth. So really what we're looking for is to get that fly down into that water where the fish are sitting. Not so worried about what type of pattern it is. So any of these pheasant tail or tag nymph varieties are going to be more than suitable for a fish, and they certainly will accept that as it comes past. So we might start off with our little 3mm pheasant tail nymph for today, and as we said, I'm going to attach that just onto the end of that 4 feet or so of 6X tippet that we attached to our 9-foot leader. You can use any knot for this, just your favourite sort of knot to attach a fly to your line. That's fine, it's going to be more than strong enough. So that's our little nymph there on the end. Just a little mayfly nymph really, but it could imitate a few different little insects that are going to be emerging throughout the day. So that's going to be a good little bet, and if we can get that down in front of a fish, I'm sure they'll be pretty happy with that. So we've set up our rig there and we're all ready to go. A couple of other things that you're going to need for a good day on the river here is a really good vest. It's going to help you out a lot. So we need to carry all these fly boxes with us, so we want some nice big pockets here to tuck them away in, and all of our leaders and tippets and things like that as well can tuck in there. Also carrying things like our float that we're going to need to apply to our dry fly throughout the day, clippers, various things like that, places to keep your used flies. So a really good vest or a bag or something to keep all that in is important for a good day of nymph under dry fly fishing as we head up the river. We're going to cover a fair bit of distance today, so we really want to be comfortable carrying all the stuff that we need. Other things on the back like your net and a bit of food and water and stuff like that is important as well. So get yourself a good one of these, and that'll make your day a lot more comfortable too. There we go. So sort of first cast up into that nicer water there, and that one's grabbed that little nymph straight away. So it's a nice little fish there to start the day. And they've got a bit of power in that faster water, so ideally not letting them go too far downstream. Nice high rod there. When we can, we'll try and bring him over into a little bit of slower water here. Slide him in there, and there we go. First little run for the day there. Only had a couple of casts into that, but showing the effectiveness there of the little pheasant tail nymph that we started off with. And he's a beautiful little brown trout there. Pheasant tail there in the corner of the mouth. Stunning little fish. Typical little river fish of Tasmania. Beautiful spots there. Just a prime example of a wild brown trout here in the lowland rivers of Tasmania. Best time of the year to be practicing a bit of nymph under dry fly fishing in Tasmania here on the rivers is from about October all the way through to the end of the season in April. From about October we start to get a lot more warm days, which is what you want for this style of fishing. We really want those food sources to be available that we're imitating to the fish. So we're imitating a lot of insects terrestrials and mayflies, other nymphs and stuff that live in the water. So from October onwards, with those warm days, we get a lot more of that food that we're imitating in the river systems, and that's when this technique really comes into its own. Up at another run here that we've just arrived to, and having a look at it, working out where we think a fish might be sitting. Probably the important thing to understand is fish behaviour and how they tend to operate. So any fish in a river's going to be trying to get to that spot where there's a perfect mix of food coming down the river, so they don't have to work too hard for that, and it's not using up too much energy for them. So if you think about those two things, you're probably going to go a long way to actually working out where a fish is going to be sitting. So, but it's just a little bit of, you know, fish behaviour and how they adapt to understand, and that's going to help you a lot with trying to work out where they sit. So try and look for that water that's a bit of a mix of where they can sit nice and easily, and there's lots of food coming down, and generally there'll be a fish sitting there, if not two. So we'll work our way up here and put that theory to the test. And what you want to do after you've landed a fish is just keep working your way up the run as you were. So, you know, there's no reason that there won't be more fish sitting in that run further up. So that was a pretty good fish. So he was probably taking up, you know, the best piece of water, but no reason that there can't be a couple more fish further up here. So just keep working your way up. Good to get a fish early in the day for the confidence in the flies that you're using. And I'm pretty happy that those flies are working well. I can see that that nymph's getting down in the water deep enough, and I can really see that dry fly nice and well floating up on top of the water there. So that was good to get a fish early. We'll keep working up this run and finish that off, and then yeah, there's plenty more nice ones up ahead, so we'll keep on working our way up. There we go, another one there. Oh, it's come down towards me. So there we go, as we said. Oh, no reason that where there's one fish there won't be another one. So he was just a little bit further up the run, still just in a little depression there. There was just a little bit of deeper water that we could see that looked like a nice spot for a fish to be, and sure enough, that's another fish that was pretty keen on that little pheasant tail nymph. And they're just great fun in this faster flowing water. Oh, they really put on a good show. So great fun here to come out and get a couple of fish like that in the first run of the day is pretty good fun. There we go, another nice fish coming in here. So nice high rod, and we'll slide him in. There we are. As well. Yeah. Let's get that out of there. Yeah. So there we go, second fish there just out of the first run of the day. So really highlighting the effectiveness of fishing that nymph under the dry fly. Both fish have taken that little nymph so far. We have seen a few fish rising, so that's a good sign as well, but the little pheasant tail nymph really coming into its own early in the day here. As we said, that fish was just up in a little depression there, just a little bit of deeper water right up sort of near the top of the run, but still happy enough to take that nymph when it landed in front of him. So beautiful little fish there. Prime example of a little river brown trout here in Tasmania. That's 150 years or so of beautiful wild brown trout that's been here in Tasmania since 1864. So stunning little fish and just so much fun to catch. So we'll put him back and let him go back to what he was doing. So I've just wandered up here to our next little run for the day. So what we're doing is just standing back a little bit and just having a look at where we think a fish might be likely to sit in this little run that we've got here. Don't be too fast to sort of jump in there and put your fly straight into the A1 spot. Often fish will sit in different places as well, not just particularly where you think they're going to be. So stand back and really come up with a plan. So have a bit of a plan of what you're going to do and how you're going to attack that run before you just jump into it. So there's a few different casts that you're probably going to want to practice when you're doing some nymph under dry fly fishing on the rivers. You're going to come across a range of different situations throughout the day. Anything from small pieces of water where you've got a lot of trees around you to larger sort of broader open areas of water too. And there's a number of different casts that we use just to give us that flexibility in a lot of different spots in the rivers. So got our standard sort of back and forward cast as such, which is really good for these open areas like I've got here. So I haven't got any obstructions behind me. So I've got plenty of room just to pick that fly up, have a couple of false casts and lay it down exactly where I want it to go. If we've got a lot of trees behind us, we might want to use like a roll cast. So what we want to do is just pick that rod up to about 12 o'clock there, and instead of making a back cast, we're just going to roll it forward and flick it upstream. Another cast that we often like to use is a water load cast. So what we're going to do is just flick the flies downstream behind us like that. From there, because the flies are tensioned on the water behind us, what we're going to be able to do is just pick our rod up and just flick them upstream like that. Go. Oh, come off. So that was a little one there. So that last fish there is a good example of just fishing your flies all the way through till the end of your drift. So don't be afraid to let them drift back quite close to you. So you can get quite close to the fish in this faster flowing water. They don't sort of pick up your movements if you've worked your way up the river nice and slowly. They won't detect your movements too much, and you can let your flies drift all the way back down to you until they're sort of only a rod length or so away, and you can still get a take at that time, as we saw with that last fish. So if you've got a nice drift going, don't be afraid to just let them drift all the way through. There we go, another one there. Just in a slightly slower bit of water there, that one was. And that's often good too, the little slower pieces of water can often be well worth fishing. This is a pretty good fish, this one, so he was just sitting there nicely in that little run. And again has taken that little pheasant tail nymph, and that's a really nice fish. Jump there. As he heads off downstream. But you could see there, I was really just keeping an eye really closely on that dry fly, which is really important, particularly in those slower runs. It's really important to keep an eye on your dry fly, because it's often not as obvious that a fish has taken the nymph in the slower water. Just him in there. Often in the slower water, the dry fly won't sort of move around quite as much as it does when a fish takes it in the faster water. So I was really just watching that dry fly intently, saw it dip under a little bit, and we knew that a fish has eaten that little pheasant tail nymph, and that's a beautiful fish there. We'll get him out and have a closer look at another prime example of a Tasmanian wild brown trout taken up here on the nymph under dry fly. Beautiful fish. So another beautiful fish here, just in the next run straight up after that last fish. So and another one on the pheasant tail nymph. So they're all taking that today, but that's just a sensational fish. You'd be happy with that anywhere in the world, but yeah, wild Tassie brown trout from the Midland rivers up here. You really can't beat that. Beautiful day here that we've got wandering up here, and having a lot of fun with these stunning little brown trout today. So we'll get him back in and get up to the next run. He's keen to go, so slip him away. Let him go back to eating nymphs. The next little run here, and that fish was exactly where we've sort of been saying that he would be, just sitting there in that little soft bit of water. And we did just change the nymph over a minute ago to our little pink tag nymph, so there was a little bit of colour in the water, so we just thought maybe the fish weren't seeing it as well as they might have been able to, so we just changed that over, and there's another nice fish there. Ooh, good jump, good show. Probably going to try and get downstream. Always good if you can stay below the fish if you can, to make your life a little bit easier. Get his head up there and he's in the net. There we go. Another nice little brown here, taken on the little pink tag nymph this time, and as we said, we were just working across the current, covering all of those spots where we thought there might be fish. This one was sitting just off that faster water, just in a slightly slower piece of water, and we saw that little dry go down, and that was it. So another beautiful little wild Tassie brown trout there. Beautiful colours. Plenty of fun on a nice warm day up here in the lowlands. Well, I think that's a pretty good day there. We've reached the top of our runs here, and yeah, we've had some great fun there this morning using the nymph under dry fly technique. Just such a versatile technique for all the rivers here in Tasmania. I think that's what really sets it apart there from a lot of other techniques that you might use on rivers in other parts of the world. So just the ability to change those flies quickly to suit the different water types. It really fits with the fish's behaviour and imitates a lot of different food sources that we get here in Tasmania. And you can really fish it all throughout the season, as we said, from October through till about April. Any of the flows that you get throughout that time are going to be pretty suitable for this technique by changing up those flies to suit the conditions. So that's pretty much everything that you need to know there to get out and have some fun. doing some nymph under dry fly fishing and catch some great fish here in Tasmania.